Grand afternoon, and according to the Gregorian calendar, it's the beginning of 2025, January. I don't necessarily see it as a new year, because I comprehend that what we understand as the 1st of January becoming the start of the new year is actually the start of the fiscal year in the West for the Western economies. 1st of January is quite important. The actual start of the new year is around about the 25th of March, springtime. So let's put some light on this. It's got a bit dark. Okay, let's see if that makes things any better. Okay, probably not. True Brit, MAGA, McAlbion, great again. What I want to talk about today, I would have just posted something today actually, just from a little while ago, and where I was talking about Trump's appointments and what they might mean for us here in the UK and what it was going to impact. I want to go into a bit more detail on that, or come at it from a slightly different angle. I may have mentioned, I did mention GESARA and NESARA in there, and I also mentioned UNDRIP, but maybe very lightly. And I'm going to put it up here, some of the points from GESARA and NESARA that are related to, say, or to the point of RFK Jr. being appointed, or going to be appointed on the 20th of January at the inauguration, or soon after, into the position of, if you like, food security, being responsible for food security in America, and also looking at the general health, but in regards to, and this is where there's a rubbing point or a sticking point for a lot of the corporate entities, look at the pharmaceutical industry, and the validity and the efficacy of not just recent vaccines, but all of them ever, because it's now coming out that those vaccines, and the efficacy, as I say, and validity of any sort of vaccination regime, is going to be and has been challenged. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that for now, because I want to sort of stay on track a little bit. The idea, just to say then, which might help, the whole Trump being a president, is not president of a country. He's the president and the CEO of a corporation, yeah, a huge corporation, and that's called the United States, USA Incorporated, yeah. You can go and check all of this stuff. It's all out there to be seen, because the USA Inc., alongside the UK Crown Corporation, alongside, say, France, alongside Germany. I'm not talking about the countries themselves, but I'm talking about the governments that run those countries. Those entities are bankrupt. The West generally is bankrupt, and that's why you've seen a rise in BRICS. Now, this, with any bankruptcy, and I know this all too well, it means that your assets, if you can't pay your bills, apparently your assets are seized, um, confiscated. Um, those that you owe money to are repaid, and what else is there? There's another element to bankruptcy. So it's the seizure of assets, the liquidation of those assets, and the redistribution of those assets, if that makes sense, to pay those bills. And if they've been found to be fraudulent in that process, if they've been the assets that have been gained, obtained, have deemed to be or seen to be gathered over through fraudulent activities, such as human trafficking as an example, or drug running, or money laundering, then that's another set of issues. However, just to get to the point, hopefully here now I'll be showing you either GESARA and NESARA in terms of a return to constitutional law, and it talks about the redistribution of all the assets that have been, or all the debts that have been created by the corporations around the globe. Usually, I'm going to talk about the Five Eyes, but it can talk about the G20. And it's not just about Western countries either. It's about those countries that were created, say, in 1913, in the 1930s, the ones that have been created recently, like Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. These are all fictitious entities claiming to be countries, but raising revenue, making money, and money going into those entities, so that the owners of those entities, the presidents, the CEOs of those, the broad entity, like say the United Kingdom Crown Corporation, and all its subsequent agencies, like, I don't know, MI6, MI5, the Department of Agriculture, the department, whatever departments they are, these are now understood as corporations within corporations, as they are businesses within businesses, in order to raise revenue from and take control actually over the resources that are in the custodianship of the sovereign citizens, the sovereign people rather, of those supposed countries that had been created. So in creating these countries, they've created a citizenry, if you like, and replaced the if you like, the common law, the common sense approach to governance with the one that we are now living through today. So there was the GESARA law that was created back in the 70s, I understand, maybe even before, in order to restore countries back to their from what I understand, for the Americans, it's pre-1860 constitution, to return to that. Here in the West, it's at those points when, say, Albion became Britain, which became Great Britain, which then went on to become the United Kingdom. Inc., I think it was the UK, or PLC, during Tony Blair's time, as an example, became, or was it Thatcher's time? I can't remember which one it was. But during both those eras, if you will, the status, Britain had changed its status from being Great Britain to being the United Kingdom. Now, in many ways, the United Kingdom's always been around, but in its current format, as a business which is registered at Dun and Bradstreet, and certain departments within that business, within the UK, United Kingdom Crown Corporation, like the courts, like the police as an example, are all registered at Companies House, or they were a couple of years ago. And I might be able to show some clips of that also over here as evidence. But again, you can go and check a lot of this stuff out. Dun & Bradstreet, as I say, that's one that's in London, and you have where a lot of the corporations around the globe are registered, but they're registered at various other places as well around the globe. Like Canada. Canada is registered by the United States, which is also registered by the United Kingdom Crown Corporation. The USA Inc. is essentially a colony. However, it's the most powerful colony that we have. Right. So the implications then, let me see if I can get to those. So GESARA and NESARA law highlights certain things. I should have brought it with me, then I could sort of refer to it and point it out here. But I think definitely point 6 talks about a return to constitutional law. It also talks about all lawyers being retrained in constitutional law. It talks about restoring a financial system at which, let me go back a bit, it talks about reducing government down to a bare minimum level in terms of how government intervenes in the lives of the people, because it is only meant to be an administrative body. So now, and politicians are only there to gather at Parliament from all the different places around the country, all the different regions, all the different parishes, to fulfil the needs of the people. Okay, it's turned into something very, very different, whereby the people that it's a bit of a career move to go into politics. It's a way of earning money and making money, and for certain people only to make money, if that makes sense, that can get into politics, to get into those professions that govern or that administrate over the resources and the assets and the people of a country. Okay, so that's going to be restored. You know, people are talking about a republic and so on. Like America's been returned to a republic. France has always been considered a republic. The UK has been a republic, and a republic is what's been fought for, as opposed to, say, rulership by the monarchy, and one being considered more democratic than the other. So the system that we have now and that we are living is meant to be a democratic society, but actually it turns out it's quite Marxist, fascist in some respects, because of what it is, that it is how it leaves the people, the majority of the people, and where the minority of people, what it is that they are, how they are not only the ruling elite, but also getting the most benefit from the resources and the assets on the land. Margaret Thatcher sold a lot of them off during the 70s and 80s, continued again and expanded by Tony Blair during his time, politicking, one for the UK, 2 for Europe, and 3 globally as well, by creating all these wars. I've prattled on a little bit here, more than I wanted to. I wanted to talk about UNDRIP very quickly then, and just sort of say UNDRIP, I'm going to point out some benefits or some of the responsibilities and obligations of the state to restore back to the people and to enable and facilitate the people to live according to the indigenous and aboriginal and organic people's desires, wishes, traditions, without interference from anyone, really, to be quite honest, from anyone at all. As I say, governments and their agencies and the agents that work within them are only supposed to be, they're supposed to be working for the people, for the benefit of the people. And it's now turning out, and we can now quite clearly see that all the agencies and the people that work in those agencies that, if you like, facilitate and create this all forms of human activity, media, entertainment, politics, law, business and finance, sports, whatever, anything you can think of. These are all being, if you like, administrated on our behalf, whether we want it or not. So, but under GESARA and NESARA, and under the if you like, the treaty that was signed by all countries of the world through the UN, which brings about the enforcement since 2019, and everybody's known about this. All the governments across the globe have known about UNDRIP. They've known about GESARA and NESARA, and they've chosen to ignore it. And what we're seeing is a bit of a backlash, because Trump's been assigned to drain the swamp and to liquidate the corporation as the head of the most powerful and the biggest corporation on the planet, which is the USA Inc. Okay, because it makes the most money. So that's what I wanted to say there. The implications for true Brits is this: is that we're going to be returned to constitutional law, the law of the land, the law, divine law, sovereign law, common law, natural law, divine law. I may go into saying a little bit more about what that might look like in real terms, and we're not too far away from being that, but we've forgotten a lot of what it means to be a sovereign living man and woman, and what our responsibilities are to ourselves, to our families, and to our communities, and to the nation, to the country, and what it is, and how we're supposed to be operating for the benefit and the betterment of the country, rather than the betterment of a handful of people. I prattle on a little bit there, and I've gone on for a little bit longer than other flights, so it's 18 minutes. Till the next time, may your ELP and your spirituality remain strong.